Hua-un didn't seem to know what the blonde was whispering. Only Kangu realized he had a crush on him but didn't dare express it. Okay, leaving this couple aside, Eun-jo wants them to quickly arrange a position to pick up the monster El Quero. But Kangu, the magician, said that they were already in a prime location. This ferocious monster will assist them in this battle. A super-huge alloy chain with the end connected to a hook floated on the ground. Behind Kangu, the sound of Himo with the leash is ready. The preparations onshore have been completed, now let's get to work. The world's first El Quero hunt. Kangu ignites the battle with the power of blue waves that create pressure to the bottom of the lake to awaken the sleepy beast. There was no need for him to wait long, as expected. The drunken monster was awakened, bleeding, and floated to the surface of the water, preparing to counterattack. It's coming. Kangu's hands are clenched into fists, preparing to wait for the monster, breaking through the waves and rushing towards Kangu's prey, which is fighting in the middle of the vast water. The lake water then rose up and rolled up his pants. Aiming at the monster that was running very close to him, Kangu shouted for everyone to be on guard. On the shore at this time were the two captains of Hua Jiang and the baby Xiona, trying hard to hold the chain. Under the lake is Kangu with eyes that penetrate deep layers of water to determine the direction of El Quero's attack. The water in the lake rose like a waterfall. The scene was majestic, as if a music festival was about to start. The monster came. It lifted its jar out of the water and flew up, showing off its toned body with little excess fat along with its deep red eyes that were filled with murderous intent, glancing at the hunters. Its long tail stirred the lake surface crazy. Its throat let out a resounding roar, then spread its huge wings and flew up into the air. It's funny to see how small the monster hunters are compared to him. The pile of ropes strung from one end to the other. It's so annoying. The higher it flew, the more terrifying its roar became, gaining momentum and giving strength to its wings to prepare for work. Having completed the preparations, the monster hovered low over the lake surface, approaching directly, spreading its dark wings and releasing countless red darts, officially declaring war on the mischievous players. Kong Ji-yu discovered that this was a poison dart attack and immediately shouted an order for Xiona to use a magic shield. The shield aura immediately surrounded and blocked the path of the poison darts, but the monster's strength was so strong that the girl gritted her teeth and used all her strength to fight back, feeling hurt. Kong Ji-yu encouraged her to try a little harder and turned to call Hinmo and Hua-un to prepare for battle. He deployed his sky wings and held two beautiful men and women under their armpits carrying a pile of chains, officially forming a three-person squad and then coming to love, hold on tight. The chain was dropped as soon as Kong Ji-yu took off. The other end of the rope was held tightly by the two of them and did not let go. The wind from above blew into the faces of the three warriors. Ji-yu Hinma, who was not used to the height, began to grit his teeth and groan. When he flew to the center, Kong Ji-yu let go of his hands and let Hinmo and Hua-un down, but he should have said something first. Hinmo was so surprised that he shouted majestically. It was really out of character. The three of them then landed safely on the back of the monster, but it was ridiculously slippery because of the earthy smell of moss and moss. This was the result of living in hiding, refusing to socialize with anyone but also being lazy and fond of sleeping. In that case, today Kong Ji-yu and the others will show him what it is like to integrate into the community. Hinmo, you go to the right to attack, while Hua-un defends on the left flank immediately. The team must install all the anchors on the monster's body before it can dive into the water again. When the anchor was inserted into its back, the monster roared in pain and shook its tail violently. The whole team still tried their best to stick the decorative anchor sticker on it. The monster kicked the water more and more violently. It slid across the water surface, causing Kong-gu's entire team to stagger as well. Luckily, the anchors were firmly embedded in its skin, so every time it struggled, its body bled. One stick can't kill an entire squad of 3 people together and will definitely have anchors tattooed all over their bodies. That unanimity made the monster roar in pain and make me shake a lot, making the 3 of us feel like we were riding a roller coaster. It's probably thinking about running away. Kong Ji-yu shouted, asking everyone to keep their hands in place. A moment later, the wretched monster swung its long tail, creating a cushion to launch it into the air along its path. This wretched thing was about to return to the deep water. Kang Ji-yu decided to try to block its escape route, so he suddenly turned around and assigned Hinmo and Hwa-eun to tie all the remaining chains to his body. Try your best to hold your sword on the monster's body. With a loud OK sound from Hwa-eun, Kang Ji-yu saw Kang Ji-yu fall into the water. As soon as he sank for a moment, he immediately unleashed his destructive power and heavenly power, creating a fierce tornado as if it wanted to break the sky. The monster seemed to have expected that, but it was too late. At this moment, Kanggu's tornado had already flowed like a storm and pointed straight at the monster, causing his teammates on its back to tilt as well. It must be a pity because the punch from before would have been stronger if it hadn't been blocked by this water. It's unbelievable how powerful he can be at times so weak. The monster was only shocked in a few places and then flapped its wings to fly into the air. Kang Ji-yu was confused as to what to do to make it more seriously injured than it was now. At this moment, when the bright sunlight shone on the monster's mouth, Kang Ji-yu came up with the idea to try using his fists and kicks to hit a dangerous place. Thinking about it, he used his sky wings to fly up again, aimed straight at the monster's mouth and then penetrated into its stomach. Being suddenly hit, the monster emitted static electricity throughout its body, causing Hinmo and Hwa-eun, who were hanging on its body wrapped in an anchor chain, to be shocked as well. But this wasn't just an ordinary electric shock, it was a monster attack. From the water not far away, Iona anxiously watched his master's attack without knowing what to do but create a barrier around him. Glancing at Hinmo to confirm that all the chains had been secured, Hwa-eun shouted and prepared to jump down. There's no time to worry about Kang Ji-yu, who's now crawling into the monster's mouth. He's the boss of this porcelain, so worry about jumping around and getting in his way. They jumped away from the monster as the anaphylactic fire flower burned brightly and Kang Ji-yu was nowhere to be seen. Making Hwa-eun doubt whether he had crawled into its mouth and performed an internal attack from inside. And she guessed correctly, Kang Ji-yu was checking the map inside this monster's stomach, but there was no need to worry because his path was protected by his own magic, and his way back was protected by Iona's magic shield. Even Kang Ji-yu didn't believe that Iona could hold the magic shield for so long, making him feel like he wasn't fighting alone but was also empowered. Kang Ji-yu used all his strength to try a steel punch that pierced the monster's stomach from the inside, successfully pulling the monster down to land on him. The unforeseen landing caused Quero to roar in pain and thrash around, sending water everywhere. Kang Ji-yu climbed out of the monster's belly and wrapped a few more turns of the fixed chain around his body, before inserting the final anchor into its body. Then loudly signaled to Eun-jo, who was standing on the giant stone monsters, "Everything is ready, pull the chain." The girl received the order and immediately whipped the bloodthirsty chain at the stone monsters that had chains wrapped around their bodies, forcing them to leave. "Why is this loser calling you now?" Eun-jo shouted because it had been a long time since the three-person squad fought, and she was only here tying chains to these stone monsters. Eun-jo's face was full of excitement because now this playground is hers. The rules are hers to decide. Quickly step aside so she can play with these beastly bastards. Eun-jo curled her lips and showed off a smile that couldn't be more holy, looking at the giant stone monsters. She whipped her bloodthirsty chain as if she were racing a horse, and the beast attracted the broken moving stone monsters to help pull the monster from the lake up. The stone monsters, whose bodies were wrapped in chains, tried to drag each step with difficulty, their throats roaring and screaming. Under the lake at this time, Kangu still maintained a defensive position on Quero, but it seemed that this resistance would not last long. He used both the heavenly power and the steel power and still endured the pressure to the point of being human. He looked towards the shore where Eun-jo was seducing the stone monsters, telling himself to keep the chain from slipping at all costs. The monster Quero then roared in pain. From the lake it jumped into the air and stretched the chain, causing the stone monsters that were being jerked back to roar in pain. The pressure Quero exerted on Kangu made him enlightened. It turned out that this monster did not weaken at all, but struggled more and more strongly. It began to feel that playing tug-of-war with the Kangu people was really annoying, so it began to shake the internal energy on its wings, releasing fierce fire flowers towards the stone monsters on the shore. But it was somewhat blocked by Iona's magic shield. Even though he had a hole in his body, he still had such blood in battle. Damn it, this Quero is so strong. At this rate, the stone monsters will break first. Looking at Iona, he was about to not be able to stand it anymore. His heart was like a mess, wondering what number to jump. Kangu. Okay, he decided to risk it and eat a lot. Hey redhead, use your bloodthirsty spear. Hearing that, Eun-jo understood what she meant. Standing above, she shouted back, are you crazy? You're injured. After a second of advice, Kangu shouted back, forcing her to do it even if she didn't want to. Eun-jo gritted her teeth, luckily activated the switch of her battle armor, determined to unleash the bloodthirsty special ability from the device on her wrist. The chains suddenly glowed red due to the transfer of energy from Kangu, who was using the special ruthless ability of Gagoi's armor with extreme difficulty. Even though he knew it was difficult to get hold of the legendary equipment, he told himself to try a little harder, waiting for the monster to weaken soon. Now, if God does not help, then having the attitude of fighting hard will definitely make corn and potatoes. A moment later, just as Kangu predicted, the monster began to lose its strength, stopped struggling and only made a weak roar. The lakeside began to calm down, making Eun-jo anxious to continue controlling the stone monsters, but the monster under the lake was quite strong and struggled to move. These stone monsters have nothing special except their thick skin, so they are almost invulnerable. Right before going hunting at Gate S, she did not realize that one day this thick skin would be so useful. Unexpectedly, it was just a delaying tactic of the monster Quero. It stirred and roared loudly, then stretched the rope with all its strength and jumped from the water to the shore. Eun-jo's bloodthirsty chain was almost completely broken. Kong Ji-yu, who the hell lives so long like a leech, succeeded in dragging it to shore anyway. Iona waddled over from nowhere, screaming to help, but she didn't expect that she was standing right in the danger zone of the monster's tail. Hua-eun only had time to swing her sword to block part of its force. Blood spurted out continuously, causing the monster to growl and lie still. Iona was thrown far away, but luckily the blonde guy was able to catch her. He was 3 parts helpless and 7 parts exhausted, thinking he was about to go serve his grandparents early because of this monster. Having finished the preparations, Kong Ji-yu jumped down from the monster and wanted to finish it right away. Interrupting Iona's sparkling happiness, he needed to use its magic to deal with the stone monsters. They were tired so they couldn't fight back. Eun-jo still didn't know that Quero had passed away, but like a raccoon, she continuously whipped her chain at the stone monsters. When she heard Kangu calling her, she suddenly looked up and stammered that she was working, not joking. It was obvious at a glance, but Kangu ignored her and ordered the 2 captains of Hua-jiang to attack the monster Quero immediately while it was on the water. Both people, one yellow and one white, rushed up immediately to prove that they were chosen for the close combat position of the squad for a convincing reason. Both twin swords combined to launch fatal sword attacks into the monster's body, causing it to emit a roaring pain and release overwhelming magic power from the side. But you should remember that a fish out of water is like a bird in a cage. The captain couple, regardless of the monster's overwhelming magic power, slashed their swords at it. How could everyone have so much fun fighting monsters without this god of war, Eun-jo, who was the last to use a chain spear to wrap around the monster and squeeze it tightly, causing blood to spurt out. It was painful, it collapsed and let out a deafening roar of terror, causing her to jump back. Even on the shore, the battle still doesn't get any easier. It's true that the boss is different. At this time, Kangu, with a look that could not be more evil, stood behind the group of people, smirking and preparing battle plan 2. I heard that Quero is the boss, so he will use the boss's method to fight you. Kangu deployed 100,000 magic cores to open 3 doors of hell. The cool green lake suddenly turned red. The atmosphere was as dark as hell. With his current skills, he thought that method would be enough to defeat this monster. Kangu's eyes widened and then suddenly turned red, using the power of hellfire combined with the power of shooting spears. With his final trident, he uses Kraken's rage to increase his magic power to 5. Clench your hands and then use Kangu's fission power to instantly create a tornado within reach. Then he stomped on the ground and smiled triumphantly, discovering that he had received the S-level Guy Boy LG skill. Kangu's eyes were red, and his whole body released demonic energy that overwhelmed all directions. Demon King Kangu is here. The people spread out so the Demon King can show off a bit. Hellfire demonic energy, spear throw, trident, last S-level Guy Boy LG skill and Kraken's rage were synthesized by Kangu into a tornado that flew towards the monster. Come and receive this reward, you bastard. The whirlwind of power now enveloped the monster. The whole sky was filled with dazzling magic power like the light of 10 Buddhas coming to reincarnate to welcome the monster El Quero as he traveled to the region of hardship. The magic power was so great that it overwhelmed the entire Kangu team and could only endure it. I know that when awakening at level 6, the player will be able to do something very special, but this explosive energy is so fucking terrible. The monster El Quero roared fiercely, launching fire flowers to break through the chains. But all its defenses at this time were just like eggs fighting against rocks. A fish out of water, ready to be killed. The victory seemed so resounding, but the winner was just as miserable as the loser. Kangu raised his trembling hand and checked the notification that he had finally satisfied the second condition of reaching the state of extreme demonic delay. Just that alone makes me so tired. I remember when I was ruling hell. Monsters like this couldn't make it difficult for him. But now just defeating a monster makes me tremble like a plow. Well, to restore his old form, he still has a long way to go. Both tired and angry, Kangu was panting like a dog. God, he needed more strength. The whole team rushed to celebrate Kangu's victory and then hurriedly asked about the explosive attack just now, not expecting to be able to witness such a display of extraordinary strength. Eun-jo wondered why he didn't use that attack at first to save everyone's effort. Who knows, sister, don't you see that his hands are shaking like a Parkinson's patient? This is not an easy technique to use. Again, this is the first time he has used this power, I swear. Whatever you say, once the match is over, Iona will jump on him and hug you. Suddenly Kangu was startled to realize that the system had not yet sent a message confirming the destruction of El Quero. What the fuck? He stopped smiling, shouted for everyone to prepare for battle. The battle was not over yet, just taking a break in the middle of the battle. The whole group was in an uproar, checking the system messages and then panicking. There was no message confirming that this monster had come to pay his respects. Kangu recalls that when he first created Guy Boy LZ, he easily slaughtered the demons from the 7th level of hell. How could a monster from the gate that was not of the demon race survive his attack? As soon as the thought ended, the beast began to stir awake with red pupils again. It roared loudly as if signaling its explosive compact screen. The whole team geared up to prepare to welcome the monster's return. To prepare for this return, the monster released magical pressure over a large area, shaking its body to show off its body with tentacles growing on its sides that became longer and longer. Without breaking all the blood chains, those of you who in the past wondered what Superman did when the monster transformed, now Tom said that he just kept quiet and watched it show off its figure. Kangu's whole team wasted time waiting for it to transform, but after transforming, El Quero suddenly ran away without fighting. Hinmo was so disappointed, he thought he had to move on to the second round, but Eun-jo didn't let him escape, throwing out a black blood chain to catch the biggest tentacle and pulling him back. But even though Eun-jo is as strong as an ox, this monster is still a monster. The whole team shouted for Eun-jo to throw one end of the chain together and work together to prevent it from escaping. Well, there is a solution to every problem. There is a saying that no matter how strong a person is, success can be achieved. But Kangu's team used all their strength to bend their whole body, but they did not make up for their mistake. You have to choose whether to let go and return the fish to the lake or hold on to a love. Damn it, having used up all three effects, the Kraken's rage was over. Kang Ji-yu didn't have too much magical power left. The prospect of losing briefly flashed through his head and then stopped. No. This head should think of something. What kind of attack should it unleash? Faced with the overwhelming situation, Iona's voice was like the last straw. the girl transformed back into the form of a huge, powerful white dragon, swinging her sharp claws and flying high to hold the foreign monster. The other octopus went to the ground. Down here, Eun-jo was trying her best to pull the chain and looked up in shock. The monster hadn't finished fighting yet, but had she also brought a new friend to join in the fun? Because she didn't know that this was Siona's true form. The dragon's eye rays hit the monster's tentacles that were trying to escape and then crushed it with its meat under its feet. This is a fish learning to be an octopus. Octopuses have 9 brains and 3 hearts. Let me cut you open and count them to see if that's enough, okay? 1,000-pound slap, continuous slap, 9-syllable white bone pan. Please continue with a few of these moves first. The roar of El Quero grew from small to louder and finally screamed a final wish when he could not return to his homeland in time. The monster's horrifying passing left the whole team with great regret because the main purpose was not to kill the monster, but the team wanted to gain experience beyond their own talent threshold. That's it, this time it's a failure. See you next time, we'll start over. After the monster fell, Iona, like a glorious hero in victory, asked Kangu if he did well. Kangu could only laugh helplessly. Well done. Good job, baby. At this time the message sending system had successfully defeated the monster turned on Quero. Kangu, who has the highest contribution, in addition to receiving additional rewards for delivering the finishing blow, has a strong increase in experience. But due to the level cap, all experience will be retained. Iona returned to her childish appearance and ran to her owner's side. This time it's a real game over, even though his level cap hasn't been unlocked yet. The happiest person in the end was Iona, who was patted on the head by Kangu and praised well, much to the admiration of the whole team. Hey, what are those tentacles that appear at the end? Is that a unique characteristic of the El Quero species? Even Hua-hoon doesn't know, so they're still very young and green. Kangu's experience as an experienced person told him that was not a trait. He had encountered something similar to this before. If you know, then tell me. Eun-jo, listen carefully. But you can't stand under it. Don't climb on its body, Dad. Kangu recalled the time the monster sprouted tentacles and the strange actions of the group of ghosts he encountered the day before and concluded, this bastard's mutant behavior of smashing around resembles the behavior of demons when they become monsters. Hearing this, Eun-jo was unusually bright and judged that it was caused by demonic forces. Then check it out and you'll know right away. They all followed Kangu's footsteps and climbed up the tentacles. The strong smell of blood and sticky fluid flowing out made everyone feel disgusted and want to call out Miss Hugh's name. Kangu came to the side where the tentacles grew. They grew out of this position, so there must be something. He reached deep into the dark corner and pulled out a distinctively shaped red gem. They all huddled around discussing it, and it turned out that the monster's heart treasure was this gem. So it was controlling the El Quero to act strangely. Kangu said, I don't know, on the outside, but in his heart, this jewel was probably the cause. It contains a very high concentration of demonic power. It seems to be another version of demonic power in the form of a magic stone. But it didn't look like much because the magic stone was naturally formed, and the surface of this thing looked like a high-class artifact. Suddenly a ray of light crossed my thoughts. A vivid image of that name appeared again. It was definitely you. Kangu happily shouted that he had found it. Not 100% sure, but 99.99% sure this was the activity of a ghost association. If you keep it like that, it's a chance. Hearing this, Eun-jo was also startled. What the hell could be wrong? Look at this gem. It looks more like a man-made item than a magic stone. The location of this thing is within reach, not deep inside the monster's body. That means someone put this inside El Quero. Thanks to the powerful demonic power in this gem, it lost control and made me crazy. But the only organization that catches these crazy people is the ghost group. Hua-hoon agreed with Kangu's judgment. In this case only the ghost group had the highest possibility of masterminding. It's true, it's just a theory, but Kangu needs to grow his nose first, and by the way, he has Iona to flatter him. While Hua-hoon asked Hinmo to investigate the ghost association from Borang City, looking at the gem in her hand, Kangu was fascinated and couldn't take his eyes off. Damn, it was so attractive. I didn't expect that those bastards and ghosts could create a stone containing pure demonic power. He was so pleased that his eyes were so small. A good item like this fell into his hands. If he didn't know how to enjoy it, it would be his own fault. So when Eun-jo wanted to take a photo of the gem as a document to send someone to investigate, he secretly used the power of lightning to send electricity to the tentacles at his feet, successfully stimulating the tentacles to move vigorously, scaring the whole team that this monster will wake up again. Luckily, Hwa-eun reassured that this could just be a phenomenon of the corpse's joints and muscles stiffening. Hearing that, Eun-jo woke up and remembered that the status window had said it was dead. Oh my god, it scared me so much that I wanted to pee my pants. Ji Hyunmo, with his weak heart, breathed a sigh of relief. Eun-jo continued to turn to urge Kangu to give her the stone when she discovered that his hand was supporting it. Both were startled, the gem was gone. The king of acting, the lord of pretenses, the clown of the century. Kangu stammered and said I don't know, it suddenly disappeared like smoke. What should I do? What should I do? Looking at Kangu's face, cut off with no blood left, looking pitiful, Hwa-eun guessed that the demonic power would disappear once touched by human hands. Eun-jo was tired and had a headache, sighing deeply, and his heart was smiling happily, preparing to see how much magic power he could absorb. As soon as he saw that the message-sending system had absorbed the demon crystal with the power of gluttony, his knee strength index had now increased by 3 points, causing Kangu to cover his mouth to keep from laughing out loud. Damselfly gained 3 points while he killed 100 ogres and didn't gain even half a point. Kangu stood like an idiot, until Iona spoke up to leave, but he still didn't stop thinking and showed a strange look that scared her. The system just mentioned demon crystals. His smile gradually revealed an evil look, hoping that if he had one, he would have many more. At the Hwajiang Corps headquarters, Iona was tired so she slept soundly in the car. In the department office, Hwa-eun represented the remaining money after repairing the gym. After selling the corpses and magic stones, there was still about 10 billion won left because no one had sold El Quero before, so they paid quite a lot. Accordingly, Eun-jo and Kangu were divided 5 billion each. When he saw the money, he was so excited that he squinted his eyes and couldn't see the sunset. As for the issue of the Hwa-eun gemstone, she asked Ji Hyunmo to investigate if there were any similar situations at other gates, and the second army from Pohang would take care of it. The concern here is what if the gem disappears again when found by humans? The difficulty of the game is in this part. We need to capture that monster alive or make sure not to let anyone touch the stone. Kangu mumbled the mantra of Amitabha Buddha, feeling so guilty that because of him, Hwajiang had to work so hard. It was true that he had done good deeds all his life and no one knew, but in a moment he accidentally turned into a sinner. The next good news woke these two young people out of their thoughts. That part of El Quero's body can be used as a material to make legendary equipment, crystallizing the tailbone into a smooth, luxurious sword, for example. The two of them were looking forward to getting the sword, until Hwa-eun said that the item would increase their strength or dexterity. Both of them were completely disappointed. One has demonic power as the main index, the other uses mana as the basis. In general, he is completely disappointed. So it turns out Hwa-eun uses it to unite all three, but unfortunately its awakening conditions are quite complicated. It seems that only players with internal energy can use it. Eun-jo doesn't understand, is the internal energy like in martial arts? Yet Hwa-eun said, it's very rare for warrior players to have internal energy. Most of them are found in China and in fact, not a single case can be found in Korea. So he and we don't belong together. Eun-jo plans to sell it to China to make money. You little bastard, why does everything come down to money? If you don't enjoy such good things, you shouldn't waste it. Kang Ji-yu said that he would take the sword because he was aiming for a great internal energy user. No stranger to him, his starfruit brother Se-hun. His whole team seemed to be lost at Gate B for a while because they took the route Se-hun pointed out. He didn't want his brother to displease him, but Taesu still had to ask. Just as he was about to answer, Se-hun's eyes lit up as he stood in front of a dungeon gate. Something is approaching, everyone prepare to fight. Then it will come. Terrible things will not happen, they will come out when you least expect it, specifically now. At 3:21 golden o'clock, a bloody and tattered buffalo head ran and roared out of the darkness of the dungeon. It howled in pain as if it had lost its father or mother, making the person facing it both scared and sad. They were all stunned that it was just a fish man. Wasn't it just a B-level monster? But it was being fertilized, so it howled like that. The person distributing onions is a tall, muscular mermaid, with 2 bright eyes, swinging his hand to deliver a fatal blow. The mermaid screamed one last time and then fell and ascended on the spot before the bewildered eyes of Se-hun's team. I don't know what magic it used. I just saw an overwhelming explosion of energy from the side, then instantly transformed into a giant super fisherman. While they were all huddled together to defend, Tetsu was the first to rise up and then was overwhelmed by its energy and knocked back. Damn, it's so strong. Se-hun quickly ran to help Tetsu, lowered his voice and said that such an attack was very dangerous. Its interface was strong, so the operating system was also strong, brother. It's more special than regular mermaids. Its eyes are as bright as car headlights and it's always growling, looking like it wants to jump out and fight with the whole team. This one is strong enough to fight anyone. Tetsu, Se-hun shouted. After Sella increases her strength, run out and try to support, while Eunbi distracts her while she's at it. Eunbi unleashed a flash of lightning to shock the jumping fish, causing it to start punching and kicking wildly, but Se-hun's cleverness attracted its attention. The handsome guy called me baby. He came over to me right away. Hey, is it nice to meet a handsome guy? Tetsu kicked him from behind, causing him to turn around in surprise. It could be said that Tetsu was too eager to fight. Even though he was being treated by Sella, he couldn't calm down. The mermaid growled in annoyance, so this idiot ruined my good deeds. Tetsu charged into the battle with a powerful hammer move, but the mermaid was no match for him. He began to use his flesh to crush people, using the fish demon king's internal force to counterattack. Sella in the back was growing stronger and worried, but this big guy was so clever that he kept thanking his sister-in-law and rushed forward. This buffalo is a crazy buffalo. It must have swung its wings and clawed forward, but it was unexpected that Se-hun had been observing the attack. He circled around its back without stopping, swung his sword and slashed it so it couldn't react in time. Then, focusing as much as possible on the spirit of swordsmanship, he unleashed his quiet heart and cut a decisive path through the mermaid's body. The action was quick and the sword was so precise that the mermaid collapsed without yawning, just like the way it had murdered its own kin just now. Tetsu, who was breathing heavily due to fatigue, also happily gave Se-hun a thumbs up, like every time he and the little magician excitedly praised Se-hun. Being on a team with the main character was different from usual. Looking at the mermaid in a heap on the ground, Se-hun was a little confused as to what was going on with this old mermaid, because it was crazier than his teammates, but no one had ever heard of a truly crazy buffalo. Its muscles curled unusually, or was it due to side effects of drug overdose? Looking at the bulging veins all over her body, Eunbi got goosebumps. She was so hateful that she wanted to die. Se-hun's eyes suddenly wavered when he saw something sparkling, wondering if there was a diamond mark on this demon fish king's body. Today, as promised, Kangu came to Hwajiang headquarters to receive legendary equipment. In front of him is a sword made from the tail of the monster El Quero that allows the user to walk on water, possessing extremely strong cutting power that can integrate the attribute of light in one attack. It's great. He's so pleased with this delicious fruit. Now that he has the chance, he'll probably try to find it for himself. But how come creating legendary equipment is so fast? It's only been 2 weeks since we defeated El Quero? Hwa-eun said that the hardest part is getting the ingredients, so we have done it. The rest is simple. Not to mention this ingredient was still hot when it was brand new. 2 weeks is a long time ago. But Eun-jo asked if Hwa-eun was overdoing it. It's a waste of time to practice saying that. Oh my god, who cares? There were only 2 of you protecting the people and the result was that we defeated the Hwajiang team. Now we still hesitate and can't help in time and it's so shameful. Who wouldn't like to be praised by team leader Hwajiang like that? But Kangu likes it even more than anyone else. As long as he has demonic power, He will rush in to eat and by the way be called a hero. Just as she was thinking, Hua-un approached solemnly and wanted to talk to Kong, but her first sentence was to ask him to stop talking politely to her. Just talking to Eun-jo comfortably but being polite to her is very strange. Since we are equal teammates, standing on the same battle line, we should not be separated. Oh my gosh, girls only care about this. First Sella and now Hua-un. If he had said it, only the country would have accepted it. That lucky girl, Eun-jo, spoke rudely to him before, but now she has become a communication example for other girls. After the previous gem research incident, his mother was so bored, the whole team worked hard from empty-handed to black-handed but still had no clue. Eun-jo and her group, too, doubled their hunting but still couldn't find anything useful. It's strange that even though two large guilds still can't find any clues, is it true that the Demon Guild only plants demon crystals in El Quero? So was his judgment wrong? At this time, the leader of the Cardinal sect heard the news of El Quero's defeat like a thunderclap in his ears. He banged on the table and stood up, scaring his subordinates to the point of falling. They stammered reports, still trying to investigate, but when they came to see the extent of the demon crystal's corrosion, all that remained were the traces of a bloody battle. Hearing this, his blood boiled and he crushed the tabletop. He turned to ask about the situation of the remaining demon crystals and found out that they were in the process of recovery but had not found any evidence yet. Angry, he crushed the table in front of him. They're all bad eaters. People are like eagles and I'm raising a flock of kiwis. But luckily the other demons were still okay, so he calmed down and sat down on the chair. Damn, that monster hasn't been defeated in the past 5 years. Why did it have to be chosen at this moment? What the hell is this situation? As he continued to ask about the progress of the plan, he heard the 3 words, delaying, and was speechless. He asked these idiots why they didn't know how to use other methods, but his subordinates shouted back and forth that if they persisted in continuing, the risk is too great. The leader didn't say to do it now, he just wanted to check a few things, but his subordinates were still very worried. The faster they did it, the higher the danger, so they kept looking for excuses to advise them. That quick measure will make global rankers restless. As for the motherfucker, he just calmed down a bit and these idiots are making him crazy again. What should a global ranker do? Having said that, he was asked in return, your subordinates are so scared that they're sweating from their mothers and fathers. Just because they're afraid that global rankers will make you all naked. Do you think I will also be afraid and have to hide in a safe zone? This is not bothering anyone. After finishing his sentence, he unleashed a furious internal energy that was so overwhelming that his subordinates could only grit their teeth and kneel down in unison to apologize. Just worrying about the safety of the association almost cost me my life. We are just a glass park, and our fighting level is like that of Ms. Hang Dai Nam. So we know our fate is to stay at home and take care of the market and not dare to compete, teacher. After venting his anger, the cult leader slowly regained his rage and asked if there was any remaining piece of ghost crystal that could be planted inside the remaining monsters as soon as possible. If the plan is delayed one more time, your heads won't be intact on your necks. The subordinates who escaped the disaster all said yes without saying a word. The main story was over. The leader crossed his legs on the chair, crossed his arms, and wanted to know the name of the sacred object that defeated El Quero. Hearing the name Che Eun-jo of Red Rose, he muttered, is it her? She's meddling in our affairs again. Just like he did with Kim Chai-ho-on in the past. His eyes flashed red behind the mask, and in a cold voice told the soldiers to prepare for the night. The subordinates hesitated, using the darkness to take down Eun-jo. Who would have thought that the leader would say no, that darkness would be used but not on her but on the newly favored soldier. That rag Kong Ji-yu, we have to take him hostage. Kong Ji-yu is now driving a fast car in the late afternoon light to Gate B at Gizong-bu. The whole team had a bountiful harvest day, chatting and laughing happily, and ended up praising Se-hun to the point of being shy. While the conversation was going on, big brother Kong Ji-yu said, hello pro guys, long time no see. So they changed the target of the congratulatory handshake to Kong Ji-yu. Wow, the dragon has come to the shrimp house. It's been a long time since I've seen this big brother's face. I miss it so much. Is the hunting situation still good? Everyone has reached B rank. Se-hun's eyes sparkled as he continued. Why did you come without any prior notice? Well, because there was a surprise gift. It was a bit of a surprise. Se-hun continued to say to Kang Ji-yu, is the gift for everyone or for Sella? Sella was eagerly looking forward to it, but when she heard Kang Ji-yu tell Se-hun to take the gift, her face turned dumbfounded. When they heard that this was a legendary equipment that could only be used by those who possessed internal energy, they all forgot their feelings for chickens and looked over. Tesu's brain stopped at the two legendary words and had to congratulate his brother Se-hun on luck. The unexpected luck made him clearly confused. His voice was low. I'm still not good enough to help you at all, so I can't accept such a precious gift from you. Whether it's possible or not is up to me to decide. In the future you will surpass thousands of other players. Soon you can compete with other rankers. Se-hun's eyes opened wide and shimmered, listening to Kanggu's words of trust, holding the sword in his hand and bowing his head 90 degrees to respectfully thank him. Oh my god, this episode is so similar to the movie Vo Lam. I hope there aren't any cold parts. Before the solemn words were finished, it was time to express Se-hun's feelings. The day he first met, he saw Kang Ji-yu and was very upset for no reason. He knows, because one guy is the main male shop who destroys the world, the other guy is the real male main character who is trusted to save this place. As for the part from now on, I feel like the feelings of hating you are gone, and it feels like our souls are connected. Kang Ji-yu can only laugh. His younger brother's head was filled with the scent of powder, but only he knew that Se-hun was indeed more attached since becoming a subordinate. I thought it was over, but I didn't expect Se-hun to proactively reach out and hold his hand, swearing from now on to only listen to Oppa and meet all requests, with an attitude like he was in the middle of a wedding, making Sella think she was dizzy. Kang Ji-yu was clearly confused, shook his hand and asked him, but did not release his hand. But no brother, Se-hun said he has something for him. Oh my god, don't tell me he's about to give me a token of love. Trying to shake off the dirty thoughts in his head, Kang Ji-yu waited to see what Se-hun was planning to do. And surprisingly, Kanggu's eyes lit up when he saw the red gift in his hand. The monster that the team defeated earlier was very strange, so I tried to check its body and found this. Placing the gem in Kanggu's hand, he successfully caught his attention. In an instant, he put aside his shyness and immediately shook his head in joy. Kanggu's eyes were now sparkling and awkward even more than Se-hun's. Se-hun, raise your hand, let's be together forever. Although this red stone was smaller than the one Kang Ji-yu had absorbed, it was enough to make him happily curious and ask how to get it back. Well, in detail, at that time we were hunting inside a gate like usual, but that time I had a very strange premonition. Kang Ji-yu opened his eyes in surprise when he heard his younger brother tell him that he felt cold all over his body, similar to the feeling of dislike and unknown cause when meeting Kang Ji-yu for the first time. So when I decided to follow that feeling, I found a giant fish man. Its skin was dark and it looked stronger and more compact than all the other fishmen. Only when I defeated it would I have that feeling disappear. Kang Ji-yu thought to himself that it must have been caused by demonic powers. So when you saw Iona in the hospital, did you feel anything? Se-hun said that time he didn't feel anything. So he can't sense demonic power, but what does that cow monster have in common with me? Suddenly remembering the scene when he returned to Earth, Kang Ji-yu remembered the time when the Gyre system called him a fragment nucleus. This kid reacted to me because he is the protector of the Gyre system. How are the mutant monsters coming out of cracks affected by demonic forces any different from Kang Ji-yu? It also means that this young man can sense any abnormalities coming from the crack. Placing his hands intimately on Se-hun's shoulders, his eyes gradually became evil and lured the obedient young man. Se-hun, why don't we work together? Because this kid will definitely find the demon crystal that the demon guild has hidden. The whole team split up in two as the sunset gradually disappeared. On a bench, an adult and a small child were drunk and snoring after a long day. Only Se-hun looked thoughtfully out the window. On the way back to the house with Kang Ji-yu, Sayla asked if his two starfruit tree brothers would separate tomorrow. That's right, Kong Ji-yu had to apologize and let her go with Tetsu and Eunbi, but he didn't forget to remind her to be careful. Sayla heard what he said but could only stay silent, bowed her head sadly and then decided it was all or nothing. She mustered up the courage to call out Kong-gu's name and wanted to ask for her and her teammates to go hunting with him tomorrow. If we go with you, how about we level up faster and provide some support? Kong Ji-yu was a bit surprised by the call, but he coldly turned away. Tomorrow we will go to the A-rank gates. The monsters there will be much stronger than the mermaids you met today. Are you confident that you won't become useless in front of monsters like that? Oh, it's better that you don't say anything. It won't break my heart if your crush refuses, then you'll have to accept it. Sela was so sad that she couldn't help herself when she heard Kong Ji-yu tell her that he was investigating a ghost association, so at any time he could become their target. While talking, Kong Ji-yu suddenly put his hand across his face, making Sela howl. I asked to follow him for a little bit, but he wanted me? But no, Kong-gu's eyes looked coldly at the 5 ghosts. These guys are like gorillas climbing and hanging on Kong-gu's luxury car, waiting with weapons. He raised his hand to stop Sela from coming forward, his face expressionless and a polite greeting. You guys are members of the Demon Society, right? The group of ghost monkeys began to curse Kong Ji-yu with their beaks, saying that they were not ordered to answer. If they obeyed they would receive a painless death. Oh really? Kong Ji-yu curled his lips into a social smile, but the next second it suddenly turned cold. His voice was icy and not clearly benevolent. Why don't you all stop babbling and get out of my car? Just one sentence from him made the ghosts angrily scream that you were indeed as arrogant as he said. They aggressively swung the chains in their hands and rushed to attack Kong Ji-yu. As they rushed forward, they screamed, "Third-rate shit but thought chocolate was first-rate, huh? We will teach you a suitable lesson. Say, are you guys swinging your axe through your eyes and breathing?" Saying that, Kong Ji-yu deployed his skywings and carried Sela like a princess and flew through the circle of demons. Sela was so fast and dangerous in just a moment that she only had time to blush shyly and nod yes. Oppa says whatever you say, just leave here for a bit. I'll go take care of those idiots and come back later. It's okay too. Sela frantically shouted, let me help you. Then cast a blessing light on his beloved Oppa. The system reports that Kong Ji-yu has just received more energy, strength by 3, accuracy by 3, inherent demon power index by 2. Kong Ji-yu felt the gentle relaxation from the energy that Sela supported and was a bit surprised. Wow, she was able to mimic my inherent stats, that's amazing. But don't worry, I won't get hurt. While saying goodbye to their romantic relationship, a loud roar rang out in their ears. You think it's so easy to escape? We'll chop you into bran and cook it for the pigs to eat. As they spoke, they launched the chains towards Kong Ji-yu with the familiar FE card. Of course, he easily slipped through without a scratch. A faint smile appeared on his lips and he asked, who said your grandfather was going to run away? As soon as Kong Ji-yu finished speaking, he avoided a punch from the hammer that was thrown past the spot he was close to. Moreover, that cunning guy also leaned over and grabbed the end of the swing, swinging himself up to the enemy's level. Kong Ji-yu used his skywings to fly high and play on their heads and necks. I jumped left and right to make the 5 enemy soldiers exhausted. They frantically organized a siege, launching chain hammers continuously into the air to make him tired and fall into the trap. But throwing around in such chaos without sticking together means these guys are definitely not amateurs. Kumquat injection is good, but just be happy, don't be too happy. The ending let him return to his wife and children, flying away quite well but nothing compared to Eunjo. Kong Ji-yu clasped his hands and unleashed a shark wave, emitting a clear electric wave that severed all of their chains and hammers in surprise, almost causing them to fall backwards. How could this be possible? I encountered something evil, my brothers. This guy is the boss. What the hell is his confidant and confidant? He has to quickly go back and report to the leader. As soon as they turned their backs, ice covered their bodies. It's so easy for anyone to give it away, honey. Do you think I will let you run? I don't have time to continue with you guys, but now I can just say go and go. The demons are all together. Stop eating shit, everyone. Now, although the cold ice has covered his whole body, it still leaves a mixed beak for Kang Ji-yu to question. Sella hid under the railing and looked towards the fight. Her eyes followed Oppa to see if she needed to help. Kang Ji-yu smiled kindly and walked towards the group of people whispering, "This time don't turn into a monster to confide in your childhood." Taking off a ghost's mask, he let the hitman breathe to regulate his heartbeat. Wow, the supporting character is so handsome, but he still loses to me. Saying, "Who told you to do this?" Kang Ji-yu used terrifying energy to hypnotize the ghost group. It was like letting the boy open his eyes to the demons in hell, making him bloodless. Is that the damn cardinal who flew out? The demon was so scared that his saliva flowed out, but the next moment he laughed like a drugged man. Is this guy resisting him? Say, what the fuck? A moment later, the old man tried to force himself to say the word, devil. When he heard it, he chose the sentence, "Long live the devil," and then stuck out his tongue and looked crazy at Kang Ji-yu. On his tongue was a glowing ghost mark. It was supposed to be sparking. Boom! The ghosts immediately burst into pieces, releasing fire to cover the surroundings. Sella's heart jumped and she cried out, "Kang Ji-yu." Yes, it's Kang Ji-yu. He has a safe protective barrier, and the male lead isn't that easy to kill. Even so, it feels warm to have your crush on your side call you out in worry. Slowly retracting the protective barrier, Kang-gu's face was as tight as a guitar string and cursed at the motherfucker. This group of ghosts keeps trying to hide and hide forever without showing their faces. Then I will have to use this hand to drag you guys out of the cave. The news that the demons were sent to execute Kang Ji-yu was reported to the cardinal, but he did not know who did it, thinking it was Eun-jo, the leader of the Red Rose Society. There was no one left in the dead group, so they decided on the name of the red-haired girl. Only she had that ability. He silently assessed Eun-jo's strength, mumbled that she was stronger than she thought, losing to a group of elite soldiers. Next, the leader learned that the total fragments collected were about 30%, which was considered a little joy for the day. Let's disband the students, there's no need to rush anything. As soon as the subordinate turned his back and disappeared, he took off his mask to see if the majestic cardinal leader was actually Baek Kong-yun of the Han-un Association. Tom was startled and trembled. The guy that Eun-jo said was an idiot and laughed at everything, but he was the last one. Well, right now he is as bright as a flower thinking that the god of time is on his side and everything will still go smoothly as planned. Ignoring the danger, Sella hurriedly ran the canoe and rushed towards Kang Ji-yu, loudly calling Kang Ji-yu. He stood still like a statue, looking down and thinking mysteriously, so he was planning to hide in there and not show his face. His eyes were cold and distant, his lips pursed and he growled, "Then I will force you to crawl out here." Sola kept calling Kang Ji-yu, but didn't see her crush move, so she panicked and screamed, "Kang Ji-yu, are you okay?" There's an explosion, but the response to her concern was an unrelated sentence. Sola waited a moment. As soon as he said that, he took out his phone and called someone. The pretty girl was thrown a lump of butter and stood still, looking at him in bewilderment. Just now, the young man's face was very tense, but now he's as happy as someone who got a ticket to an idol swing, excitedly saying, "That's right, Se-hun." He's so soft-spoken, but inside he's feeling guilty. "Hey guys, I'm sorry Sola. I have to call so I can know for sure. Do you remember the story about collecting demon crystals that I talked about before? We have to try a little harder, 6 p.m. at the gate." Just like that, Sola obediently stood aside, nervously listening to Kang Ji-yu talk on the phone. Finally, after he finished the last sentence, "Okay, see you later," she understood everything, tightened her grip on the wand, trying to control her emotions. As soon as the call ended, Kang Ji-yu turned to seriously ask me, "Have you seen Sola? You don't know what to do but keep quiet and listen?" Kang Ji-yu solemnly repeated how the two of them had just been surprised by the men in black. "We don't know what the demon cult people will do next. I have no choice but to keep my distance from you while we're outside." Sola raised her sparkling eyes, unable to hide her emotions, and hesitantly spoke up to interrupt him. "You, so thoughtful, just like right now. You paid attention to my feelings." Her gentle words really touched the heart of this guy who only knew how to fight and kill for many years. Kang Ji-yu looked at Sola hesitantly when he heard, I want to become someone like you. Someone who can repay all the things you've done for me. Of course, if you want to do that, you have to be strong. Satisfied, she even smiled and closed her eyes, confidently making a bet. Just wait and see. Next time we meet again you will be surprised with my new strength. Looking at his crush smiling brightly like the sun, Kang Gu's eyes widened, his heart pounded. He pursed his lips in embarrassment, silently screaming in his heart, oh my god. Sola is truly an angel. I can't stand this excited atmosphere anymore. The young man coughed, regained his composure, and changed the subject. I understand, then let's go home. But she was too shy to limit her vision. Seeing him turn around and go the wrong way, Sola lamely called back, Kang Ji-yu, the car is on this side. Everything went smoothly. Fast forward to 10 days later, at a mysterious blue dungeon gate. Kang Ji-yu opened his hand to show off the 3 sparkling crystals and happily assessed that everything was going very smoothly. Just saying it wasn't enough, he also put his arm around Se-hun's neck and laughed, causing the boy to bewilderedly ask, hey man, are you just here today? Hearing his brother tell him the news was correct, good job, the young man's little heart felt an indescribable feeling. What should I say? I basically helped Mr. Kang Ji-yu. Seeing him with sparkling eyes like a cute little puppy looking up at him, the young man allergic to dog bloody situations made all the hair on the back of his neck stand up and his face turned black. Azo, this kid's eyes were really because he was obedient, so I reluctantly ignored it. Senior Kang Ji-yu said yes. He winked and pointed at the shiny car, meaning that if you don't criticize me for being poor, then get in the car and I'll take you home. Se-hun's eyes lit up with excitement but smiled politely and turned around. Ah, no need, I'm going to the hospital to visit my mother. That's it, no more disturbances. Driving the car through the streets, Kang Ji-yu smirked with satisfaction, but Tom only noticed the red and blue bag next to the passenger seat, a gift for his crush. But what greeted Kang Ji-yu was not a crush but a cry of missing the owner of baby Iona. Kang Ji-yu, haha, what do you think? Kidding is your job. Kang Ji-yu shook the red and blue bag in his hand and said gently. I bought this ice cream. She stopped crying completely. Her eyes widened in curiosity, not knowing what was in her hand, but it seemed very delicious. A few minutes later, the young man taking care of the children sat down on the sofa dejectedly, crossed his arms and thought, I've collected quite a few demon crystals but it's still so quiet. If the demonic cult was on the move, I would have received a call from Hua-un or Un-jo right away. But since the last incident, nothing has happened. Despite the owner's thoughts, Iona carelessly chewed ice cream and copied one jar after another. Calculating back and forth, the young man angrily looked at his hands angrily. Were they doing something secret somewhere else? Had things become complicated? Suddenly the phone rang, stopping my thoughts. I saw the caller's name was Hua-un. Kangu was sure there was something wrong, so he immediately picked up the phone and said, Hua-un? The beautiful woman Hua-un announced with a tense face, Kangu is me. We investigated some suspicious activities at an S-class field at the port. I heard an enthusiastic voice asking again, is it a demonic cult? Her eyes were filled with insecurity, quickly confirming that yes, according to the news, they were preparing to summon something, called a summoning ritual. Immediately after hearing the news, Un-jo and the Red Rose set off first. As for the beauty, she will fly there by military helicopter soon, before calling to notify Kangu and send the address. Tell me to go to the helicopter to be picked up. Kangu hummed in response, but her anxious eyes looked towards Iona, silently calculating. Thanks to the demon crystal, I have a lot of demon power, so I will take the more convenient path. So Kangu made the captain's eyes widen in surprise by refusing to take the helicopter, saying that he would go there himself. Hua-un did not understand what he wanted. Oh my god, this is an urgent situation. Who's kidding? I just have my own helicopter. Kangu reached out and rubbed baby Iona's head confidently. His eyes filled with devilish determination, affirming to her again, there's no need for me to borrow from someone else. A private helicopter should be different. Tom agrees that you are the best. No one is as cool as you in this matter. In the blink of an eye, the professional working group Kangu and Iona were present in the empty lot under the middle of the apartment building. He raised his head and looked at the clouds flying absent-mindedly, smacking his lips in assessment. With so many clouds, surely no one would see them. Iona was very happy because it was only Kangu and her going today, but she didn't expect to come to roll call. The boss snapped his fingers and laughed triumphantly. Let's fly to the port. Yes, Kangu, Iona's voice echoed throughout the sky. A moment later, the little girl transformed into a giant white dragon flying through the clouds. Her heart filled with joy and silently called Kangu, all 7 children. Having flown quite a distance, Iona turned around and awkwardly called out to him, by the way, when we're done, can I have some more ice cream? Kangu listened and smiled and immediately replied, ice cream? I will buy you a whole box, don't worry. Hearing his promise, Iona excitedly tilted her head back and smiled, I will try my best. This plane runs on ice cream, so it's not a box. Just one box is enough to take him to the ends of the earth. The little girl raised her head in a straight line, then flapped her wings strongly to increase her flying speed. The action was so sudden that it scared the young man out of sweat and screamed out majestically. It's okay, calm down. When he regained his composure, the baby dragon flew at a more stable speed. Kangu smirked and now took a defensive stance, having to plan ahead from now until someone sees it, and have to act immediately. Having finished speaking, he used his magic to perform a reflection technique, transferring it all into Iona's body. The flying girl saw something strange, so she couldn't help but wonder. Kangu, what did you do? The young man happily explained, this is a skill that makes us invisible, nothing to worry about. Talking about things to calm his curiosity, the baby dragon continued to fly to meet his owner's appointment at the wharf. He had to work professionally to be worthy of Kangu's big box of ice cream. Sitting on the dragon's back, gently swaying with the wind, the young man's round head felt heavy with worry. The fact that he could not grasp the scale of the demonic cult was truly worrying. Having said that, he frowned. How far had they spread out? A brief list of the 5 major festivals of Korea, including the Hwajeong Imperial Army in which Hwa-hoon is the captain and Eunjo's Red Rose, is probably not the case. Kim Jae-hoon's Mia Association has long since been eliminated, leaving only Baek Kong-yun's Han-un Association and Jamie Nyok's Fraud Association Wonnery as the most suspicious. Oh man, I'm so sorry, which group did they infiltrate? After thinking about it, the baby dragon finally flew all the way to Pohang Port, but Kangu still couldn't find anyone, so putting aside the detective stuff, he glanced around to check the landing spot. The two stood in bewilderment for several minutes without seeing anyone come out to greet them. The young man, who often thought a lot, thought even more. Apparently Hwa-hoon said she would contact the unit responsible for this area. Well, I only landed a little far from the gate, but they probably didn't see me. Saying that, he turned and called out softly. Iona turned back into her human form. She eagerly pulled her tail and began to nervously ask where we were going. The fruit crabs were exploding in the air, sliding their tails and whipping them out like peanuts. Kangu was startled and turned around to look around. Is there someone here? Iona was also very scared. She turned around and looked for a teacher with red eyes. Kangu looked around carefully and silently assessed. Clearly I didn't see anyone, so I landed here. Or was this guy using his invisibility skill to hide himself? Thinking so, he turned around and prepared to release his search magic. Seeing that he was about to be poisoned, the hidden man opened his mouth and shouted, "Wait, stop, don't attack." As soon as he finished speaking, a young man wearing a red hat sitting on the ground appeared. The first greeting was not saying hi but a bewildered look up at Iona. Is this a real dragon? At this moment, when he opened his shirt pocket, something sparkling appeared out of his pocket, attracting Kangu's predatory eyes. It was a demon crystal, right? The red hat youth quickly stood up facing the black-robed youth, both growling and shooting cold glances at each other. Super tough Kangu remembered immediately. It was the player accompanying Baek Kong-yun, the president of Honorary, Chim Min Ioc. The two looked at each other in bewilderment for a long time. The young man with the red hat hesitantly spoke. I spotted a strange shadow, so I followed. Saying this, he raised his voice to question Kangu. He was the person that Eun-jo brought along. That's enough. Kangu suddenly turned into a devilish face and spoke loudly in a sinister tone. Do I give you permission to speak? Min Ioc felt that he was being so unjustly punished, trying to pat his chest and explain. I'm just trying to explain the situation. I know I look very suspicious right now, but... Hey, Kangu shouted, interrupting his words, ready to take out the cake full of hair-raising purple and blue magical power to scare him. In addition, he rushed forward and pushed him close to the guy's face, shouting loudly. I told him to keep his mouth shut. Faced with a man who refused to speak reason and was also a huge dragon, Min Ioc did not fight him. He stepped back and took out his weapon. Although Kangu's appearance was aggressive and unreasonable, his eyes looked at Min Ioc with a bit of pensiveness. I'm sure there are people who hold demon crystals but don't belong to a demonic cult. But thinking about it, it's really strange for a president to be here, and adding in the fact that he's secretly following and stalking, it's really hard for Kangu to make a decision. Should I listen to him or not? Min Ioc stared at Kangu and asked one last time, so you won't listen to me, right? Saying that, he sharply raised his arms and launched a few dagger strokes, coldly declaring war. I will use force to make you submit. The whole space was silent as the two young men looked at each other seriously and affectionately before getting to work. Opening this battle was Min Ioc. He was small and thin, but he quickly disappeared. On this side, Kangu's Demon Lord has used the ability to transfer the power of superspeed to run wind vehicles. Moreover, he also combined the power of the blade to slash two swords at the opponent. The weapons of both sides quickly collided. The pressure that Kangu put on Min Ioc was not moderate. That pressure made the inexperienced red-haired young man grit his teeth and strain his arms to defend. But in just a few short seconds, Min Ioc tried to push Kangu's hand away and quickly jumped back to defend. His sweat fell like a shower, trying to regulate his rapid breathing. Min Ioc's face turned pale and he looked at Kangu without blinking, silently exclaiming, so strong, who is this guy? Kangu also thought he was not that bad, but he wasn't very strong. If he was involved with a demonic cult, he would have to be stronger than that. The two sides fell into silence again, standing and looking at each other passionately. Kangu looked at the lost and panting figure of the other person with many doubts. If his guild has nothing to do with the demonic cult, then what he said is probably true. I'm so annoyed, the young man snorted coldly. Should I try him? Eun-jo and the Hwa-jiang team are about to arrive. Look at his appearance, he's as thin as a hungry ghost. Apart from his strange actions and that squinty face, it's also believable, right? Kangu hesitated for a long time and decided to turn the car around to break the stuffy atmosphere. If what you say is true, I will listen, but why did you come to Pohang? Min Ioc glanced at him, angrily questioning, are you doubting me? You're the one who's doubting. Who wouldn't be suspicious if you've gotten stronger so quickly lately? Having said that, the young man quickly lifted up the dagger at his feet, and in the blink of an eye the knife was ready in his hand. Blink again, he disappeared again. This time, Min Ioc used a double-attack soundwave attack that completely shifted momentum. In the blink of an eye, Kangu saw him screaming and rushing straight towards him. He stood there smiling, curling his lips contemptuously, not commenting on this name anymore. Just by accurately positioning Min Ioc a centimeter away from him, Kangu shook gently to the side and immediately avoided it. Not only that, he also deliberately grazed the big boy's shoulder. This was because I was curious, so I asked him, making the red hat youth extremely panicked. But the blood of jealousy runs deep in his blood. Kangu spoke in a low voice and lightly sarcastically said, thieves are also causing aggression, that damn thieving president. Min Ioc was furious when she heard this. Her facial veins were covered in veins, and she immediately glared at him. While fighting, the wild young man Kangu became infatuated and stopped for about 2 seconds to check his phone. After reading the message I will be there in 10 minutes, he felt relieved, so Eun-jo and Hwa-eun had not arrived yet. We still had some time. After finishing the operation, he put the iPhone back in his pocket, then quickly pressed the button to buy coffee automatically on the side of the road. Even so, he gallantly turned to the street and offered a drink to Mina Oc. Little Iona also had a share. Seeing the red hat boy sitting as well as a puppy, he spoke up invitingly, "I've already paid." Tom didn't say that he had been stripped of everything from money to demon crystals, so he was left empty-handed and sat in the corner sadly. Glancing at Mina Oc, who was still looking down and speechless, he unhappily spoke up and continued, "I'm not a patient person. If you don't want to be misunderstood, it's better to start reporting." Kangu held a cup of hot coffee, walked closer to Mina Oc and asked, "Why did you come to Pohang?" Mina Oc was quite shy, still refusing to look at Kangu, hesitantly said, No, I'm the honorary association." The following information made the budding detective Kangu stop dead in his tracks. His whole group followed the trail of the demon cult on their own. Mina Oc confided in Kangu, "You must have heard the saying that thieves should keep their mouths shut and treat their wounds themselves. When I first walked this road, I held my tongue and listened to some talkative people criticizing me like that. Even though I tried to bandage them myself, I felt so angry that I wanted to cry. That statement is no different from scolding others for being useless and providing no benefit to our comrades. We bandits are often treated like that." As the years passed, the group gradually became accustomed to that. Then one day, we grasped the rumors and sought justice quite quickly, which is why we learned about the demon cult. In the association, we are all members with not very outstanding bodies. Some are stunted like children, some are shy, but at that time they all expressed their resolute agreement with me. I was also quite surprised and looked at it with suspicion for a long time. We were finally determined to find the Demon Society without relying on the Red Rose Society or the government. We want to prove that thieves are not useless, so after observing your unusual actions, I followed you. You probably won't believe me." Hearing Manhwa confide in a long story, Kangu felt a bit of sympathy and loudly agreed. "No, what you said was quite logical," making Manhwa angry. Then turned around and asked him, "Really? Really? Do you really believe me?" Kangu really bothered his eardrums when he heard it. He immediately gulped down a cup of coffee to calm his mind and answered a few idle words. What he said sounded reasonable. Yet, his heart was filled with hatred and thought, just by trusting him, this kid would make a fuss. The questioning ended there. Detective Kangu immediately urged his assistant Iona to leave quickly, leaving only a cold explanation. "There's that story about Hong Jin-dong, isn't that a Korean story about thieves similar? I don't know if this is enough to prove your worth, but good luck." Manhwa sat motionless, eyes wide open for a few seconds, then quickly ran after him, calling for Kangu. "Wait," he glanced back and silently felt annoyed. "What's next, Dad?" Unexpectedly, Manhwa came forward and said sincerely, "His strength is on par with the 5 largest guilds in Korea, but he is even stronger. Why are you helping the government hunt down a demonic cult? There must be some reason." Kangu can only roll his eyes helplessly. There are so many terrible things going on here. Thinking so, he still replied softly, "So isn't it obvious? My reason is the same as yours." The young man heard the answer and froze in episode 2, asking again, "Like me?" Kangu told him about the delicious kimchi stew with tears in his mouth, lifted his armpit and ended with an extremely poetic sentence. "Because I am a person who has a reason to protect kimchi soup, not world peace." His answer was so impressive. His success made the boy's eyes widen in bewilderment in episode 3. After sharing in a very sincere tone, Kangu threw up his shirt and said, "I'm leaving, see you later." Manhwa looked at his back and suddenly greeted him with surprise and silent admiration. Okong Jiu looks like a bad guy, but he can't picture his face by looking at his face. People praise me, but deep inside my heart, I suddenly show disgust and add to what I said just now. Those demonic cults are very suitable for absorbing demonic power, that's all, there's no real reason for that. I don't want to talk about it, but when I see someone ask me, it's scary. The young man put his pocket in his pocket and walked leisurely, Feeling that he had gained a little, after all, he had verified that the group of thieves did not interact with the demonic group he was looking for, and he was too weak to be able to do so. Who is the leader? Sifting back and forth for a while, Kangu's eyes suddenly turned cold when a thought flashed in his mind. If ManhwaCapped is looking for information about the demonic cult, then there is only one person left who is the most suspicious among the guild leaders. The name that ManhwaCapped and the president of San'er have their eyes on is Han-un's Baek Kong-yun. Exactly, there's no way to argue. At that time Baek Kong-yun was in the magic temple wearing a red mask to be the cardinal leader. Standing in front of the red magic ball, the cardinal recited something that made the ball radiate a bright halo. His voice echoed through the sphere deep into the cave. Priest wrote Zichdu, have you finished preparing yet? The named character who was standing solemnly in front of the magic ball like him responded immediately. Of course, Cardinal. Opposite him was a group of men wearing black robes and a strange formation. On the other side of the sphere, the Cardinal seriously listened to every word he said. This summoning spell is the first step in our great plan. We will not accept any failure. After listening, the priest said in a strong voice, must succeed at all costs. Even if you have to use extra sacrifices? He quickly replied, yes, Cardinal. Having finished speaking, the priest let out a sigh of serious relief. The gardener raised his hand and lifted off his entangled cloak, showing off his prestigious baldness. A few tattoos were still alive, glaring at the magic ball and praying, please bring honor to the Demon Society. As soon as the scarification ritual was finished, he loudly called out to a disciple, hey, have you removed the blood from the castration sacrifices yet? That guy respectfully bowed his head and said yes. He heard the answer but was speechless, his face still expressionless. Looking at the magic formation at his feet covered in blood, he angrily thought, this ritual is extremely important, we must not fail. Having said that, the priest bent down and wiped a bit of blood from the ground. Observing that the blood was still wet and sticking to his hands, he glanced at him in annoyance, just as he thought, this was not enough. Looking at a guy in the ranks, he loudly called out, hey, that guy over there, come here. The startled boy quickly replied yes. After saying that, he stepped in front of the guy and asked, what's the matter, priest? The bald man said nothing and threw a knife through his body, causing him to cry out, not having time to deny his last words. Then he fell to the ground and lay there forever. That action caused the disciples behind him to stumble and stand still. The whole crowd stood up and shouted loudly to question him. Priest, what are you doing? The guy seemed to have gone crazy, raised the sharp knife in front of him, grinned and screamed, there was still not enough blood. Blame yourselves for not gathering enough in castration. A massacre took place immediately afterward, blood splattered and the screams of the juniors, then the crazy laughter of the priest, disturbed the entire cave. Soon the air fell and then fell silent, corpses were scattered all over the formation. The bald man stood and checked the offerings and then prayed loudly, please bring glory to the Demon Society. Pulling back the shiny knife, the bald man smiled contentedly as he looked at the results of his hard work. This much is probably enough. The first step seemed to be okay, but the bald guy quickly crouched down and propped himself up in the middle of the formation to carry out step 2. Not knowing what he was mumbling and praying for, Eric Ecker, Havoc, and Gala momentarily received a beam of light as bright as a tiger's light, leading them to the Western Paradise. Ah no, this guy must be sent to the 19th floor of hell to match his cruelty. Returning to the plan to raid the demon cult, Kangu then saw an acquaintance and loudly called Un-jo. Wa-un. This idiot still innocently waved his hand in a friendly way to ask about the situation. Can you enter the F-level gate, right? The other two people didn't believe that he had arrived in time, yet their faces were still so calm. Hearing Kangu anxiously ask how things were inside, the captain seriously announced, it doesn't look too good. It seems that the demon cultists are hiding in a cave. The problem is that there are many caves inside. To catch them is almost like finding the moon underwater. I can also hear that the surrounding air is also very disgusting. Everyone was listening closely to Hua-un's summary of the situation when from afar there were footsteps approaching, accompanied by a loud voice. It turned out everyone was here. Captain Himo said with his trademark grin, "Hua-un, how are you these days?" "Mr. Kangu, Miss Un-jo, long time no see." When the two team leaders met, they immediately went in to ask about their work. The beautiful white-haired girl asked the blonde guy, "How is the investigation going? You're not very good at reporting right away, but we just heard an explosion coming from inside the gate." Black-haired Kangu couldn't say a word, so he moved to the side to listen. Suddenly, Iona grabbed his shirt and softly called out, "Kangu?" She looked at him with tense eyes, hesitantly speaking with fear, "That gate, it smells of blood." Kangu listened dumbly and started sweating. Then it was time for work. As for the demon priest, he is currently kneeling on the ground, laughing madly, howling, "Successful, successful." His summoning ritual actually had a response. The time-space gate was torn apart by him until it shattered and left a large dent. The magic power released from hell was clearly transmitted. The bald man raised his head to look at the gate happily, rolling his eyes and smiling with his teeth. "I have been waiting for you for so long. Please show us your wonderful strength." From the space-time gate stepped out a kneeler with two curved horns, a chubby face, and long fangs standing tall like a mountain. The bald man was not afraid when he saw it, but happily knelt down and bowed, howling and screaming, and would walk on the eternal path. The demon growled and hissed, "Who dares to summon Auriax, the demon of the seventh layer of hell?" Pressing his head against the ground in agony, he cried out, "O great Auriax, lowly humanity, please meet me walking on the eternal path." Seeing the troll kneeling at his feet, the demon raised his voice and questioned, "Is it you who summoned me?" He opened his bright eyes and smiled happily, nodding repeatedly to confirm, "Yes, master. Whatever you do, you need to know its cause. The same goes for the kneeling child." He immediately asked in a harsh voice, "Why did you call me up here?" The bald man changed his attitude to play the role of a coward and weakling. He hesitantly raised his head and replied, "I hope you can make vile humanity shed blood. Please lead your disciples on the eternal path. If we can escape the bonds of life and death, we pledge all our loyalty to you." Worryingly, the bald guy didn't know that in a hidden corner nearby, someone had witnessed his entire reactionary film. Next, the child kneeled and started laughing, "Ha ha, I like your greed, human." The investigator was now very panicked, trying to check the sound, took out the walkie-talkie from his pocket and pressed the contact button. Immediately after that, the radio on the blonde captain's waist rang out, "It seems I have found a cave. Things are very strange here." The whole team immediately gathered around Hinmo. The voice in the dress suddenly became smaller, interrupted, and then disappeared, threatening the hot-blooded blonde to shout loudly. "Wu Hinmo is full. What's the matter? Hey, answer me." Kong Ji-yu is so frustrated. He has a serious voice and many opinions. Instead of wasting time shouting, "I think we should hurry up." A ghostly green gate opened in the middle of the air, emitting a strong smell of blood. He added in a harsh voice, "They don't even hide the smell of blood anymore." Not only the fishy smell of blood, the aura emanating from the gate made the whole team stand still for a few seconds. With the same feeling of peek-a-boo, inside the S-gate at Pohang at this time another group was gaping at something terrible. It turned out that the demon Auriax was floating in the air and started filming a vlog of his journey to visit the Earth. The whole group was scared and trembling and asked each other, "What is that?" Auriax strained his ears to hear a whisper and turned around to check. As soon as it was discovered that it was a living creature, Auriax landed with a bang, sending dust flying. The demon launched a laser to examine the creatures in front of him and smiled greedily with delight. "Hee hee. Using you guys as a sacrifice isn't bad." Facing the oppressive momentum and terrible pressure from the brazen demon, the group shouted to each other, "Don't be afraid. We must hold out until reinforcements arrive." Having said that, the whole group rushed forward. Whoever had a sword used a sword. Whoever had a bow and arrow shot arrows. Among them was a mage who shot blue magic that caught Auriax's attention. Its eyes were bright and cheerful as it tightened its grip on the scythe in its hand, its mouth twitching from ear to ear. "Ah, This is the madness of fighting. It's so stimulating. Very quickly, the demon zigzagged and slashed his scythe, clearly cutting the sadness of all members of the group in half. The foul smell of blood everywhere and their screams made the demon even more energetic. Kangu's monster fighting squad just arrived in time to witness that remarkable scene. Captain Hinmo was so shocked that he gasped in horror. On the other side, the bald man grinned widely and trembled with satisfaction. Ah, just the first summoning has led to such incredible power. The space-time wall is getting weaker and weaker. Next time it will definitely summon an even stronger demon. My heart scratched and turned around, dreaming of future prospects. This country. Ah no. Then this world will be under the control of a demonic cult. The demon Oryx danced wildly for a while then stopped, screaming loudly. It was still not enough, even though its scythe was dyed a crimson red. And the bloodthirsty devil stuck out his long tongue and turned back greedily to look at the group of humans cursing, those useless insects. The group of monsters were screeching in anger. The blonde guy was no longer able to stand it anymore. Just as he braved everything to the point of fighting this mixed-up demon, there was a loud call, "Hey wait!" And he was startled and turned around to look. The whole group shed tears of joy and loudly called out, "Captain!" Hinmo took a stance, turned two long peach blades, and rushed like a squirrel straight towards the demon. Oryx saw him out of the corner of his eye and immediately raised his scythe and took an offensive stance, still talking loudly.